Christ. I see Christ in you. You my brother. Okay, hold up. Yeah, I see Christ in you.
I esteem all my bros to be better than me. Truth be told, truth be told, this is what we must do to avoid envy. Truth be told, truth be told, and blacks and Hispanics are family. Truth be told, truth be told, I just pray you see Christ when you see me. Truth be told, truth be told.
Shalom, Most High in Christ bless. You are now tuning into Truth Be Told DC, broadcasting live via listenvisionlive.com. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to hear the truth according to the Bible, hosted by IUIC DC. For music, clothing, and instruments of learning, visit originalroyalty.com and israelunite.org. Shalom.
Truth be told, I'm Officer Mendel, and to my right,
Officer Micah, Officer Ruben,
Officer Yafin.
okay, today's show is going to be the history of Northern Kingdom of Israel, so-called Native Americans and Hispanics. So before we get started with that, let's go to John 8:32.
The book of John, chapter 8, verse 32. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
So you should know the truth, and the truth will make you free. The truth is that the blacks, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are the true biblical Israelites, and you must repent in the faith of Christ and keep the commandments to get the kingdom. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start because today we're working with Northern Kingdom of Israel. So let's get right down to it. Let's go to 2nd Esdras.
The book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 13, verse 39. And whereas thou sawest that he gathered another peaceable multitude unto him, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land, in the time of Osea the king, whom Salmanassar the king of Assyria led away captive. And he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. But they took this counsel amongst themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen, and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt.
Where never mankind dwelt. So wasn't anybody over here before they got over here. Go ahead.
That they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river.
So this is giving us the how they went, the path that they went. This is how they got over here to America. Go ahead.
For the Most High then shewed signs for them, and held still the flood, till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of 1.5 years.
Because they had to make stops along the way. So it took 1.5 years for them to get here. Go ahead.
And the same region is called Arsareth.
So the same region is called Osiris. So we don't have the video because we got a lot of books and stuff to cover. But if you watch the movie 1492 with Christopher Columbus, he tells you in that movie that he used this book of Esdras to find America. And also, if you look up Osiris in the Jewish Encyclopedia, it tells you that Osiris, which is in 2nd Esdras, what we just read, 13 and 45, is America. So that's a really big thing because it's telling you how the Native Americans got over here, and it's also showing you the importance of them getting rid of this apocrypha out of the Bible, you know, to keep that secret. So let's go ahead and jump to this book, Christopher Columbus.
This is a book entitled Christopher Columbus and the Participation of the Jews in the Spanish and Portuguese Discoveries.
Okay, because we're going to hear some history books. We're going to show you that historians and scholars know who the Native Americans and who the so-called Hispanics are. Go ahead.
Page 98. Of more interest than the mode of migration is the question whether any analogies in language, in traditions, in religious conceptions, or in religious ceremonies justify the acceptance of this ethnological theory. Rodin's chief argument in support of his view is the language of the Indians in Hispaniola, Cuba, Jamaica, and the adjoining islands. He contends that it has many resemblances to Hebrew. In fact, he even calls it corrupted Hebrew.
So you see what the historians are writing in their books? Go ahead, keep going.
He asserts that such names as Cuba and Haiti are Hebrew, and that they were first applied by the earliest caciques, the chiefs or leaders who discovered and peopled the islands. The names of rivers and of persons in use among the natives are derived from Hebrew. For example, Haina from the Hebrew Ain, stream, Yons from Jonah, Yak from Jacob, Ures from Urias, Sayabao from Seba, Maisi from Moisi. The names of their tools, of their little canoes or kansas, the name Axi for pepper, the name of the storehouses for maize, grain, and the like, all point to Hebrew language.
You see that? All point to Hebrew language. He's going to give you a lot more. Keep going.
Their rites and ceremonies, as well as their language, form one of the main arguments in favor of this theory of descent. Circumcision prevailed among the Indians.
So who was the only nation to do circumcision? That's telling you clear cut right there. They were doing circumcision over here. Go ahead.
They often bathed in rivers and streams. They refrained from touching the dead and from tasting blood.
We know those are laws right there that they kept. Go ahead.
They had definite fast days.
So we know that we have definite fast days.
Marriage with sister-in-law was permitted if they were childless widows.
You see that? And that's another law right there. They keeping all the Israelite laws. Go ahead.
Wives were discarded for new helpmates. They also sacrificed first fruits on high mountains and under shady trees.
Who else does that? Go ahead.
They had temples and carried a holy ark before them in time of war.
Who carried the ark in the time of war? You can only read about the Israelites doing that. Go ahead.
They were also, like the 10 tribes, inclined to idol worship. All writers and travelers agree, moreover, that there were many Jewish types of faiths among the Indians and Aborigines of America. The question whether the American Indians are descendants of the Jews, whether they are the offspring of the lost 10 tribes, has often been answered in both the affirmative and the negative, but it has not yet been definitely settled.
Well, we know it's settled. The Bible says it's settled. So let's go ahead to Hosea 1 and 10, because we're going to read a little bit more history. And this is going to basically, let's just get the scripture right here.
The book of Hosea, chapter 1, verse 10. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people.
So hold it right there. So it says, let me read this again. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea. So when you hear these scholars talking about they don't know who the Israelites are, it's telling you right here in the scriptures that there's going to be a multitude of them. We know who the Israelites are. We're not confounded by these lies that they putting out here.
Right.
It said they're going to be as the sand of the sea. So it's not going to be hard to find an Israelite once you uncover the history and things like that. Go ahead.
Ye are not my people. There it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living God.
So it's said right here, we are not God's people. We get told that all the time. Y'all crazy. Y'all in a cult. Y'all ain't no Israelites. But we got all the proof. That's why we bringing all these history books out today to show that. And here we telling our people, you are the Israelites. You are the sons of God. Go ahead.
Verse 11. Then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together and appoint themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel.
So it says, then the children of Judah and the children of Israel. That's not saying all nations. When is that going to happen? So how can that work in conjunction with all nations being saved when it's telling you right here that only the Israelites going to be saved? Mm-hmm. And that hasn't happened yet. So you telling me that the Israelites going to be saved, then Christ going to come back and save everybody else? I need that scripture if that's what you're saying. All right, let's go ahead and jump to the book, history book.
This is a book entitled The 10 Tribes of Israel by Timothy R. Jenkins. Page 10. The Hebrew letters found engraven in the top rock at Ticonderoga, the sheens found in Georgia, and the inscription on the shekel are evidences that those who were taken by Shalmaneser in the reign of Hoshea at least 721 years before Christ, and of course, before the carrying into Babylon, before the reign of Jeconiah, used the present form of Hebrew letter.
Just read the highlighted areas. Go ahead.
Page 11. We have, however, great and precious promises to all the seed of Jacob yet to be fulfilled. He gathered together the outcasts of Israel. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel and gather together.
Now, hold on. Before you finish, because I didn't mention this, this book was written in the 1800s by your oppressor. So they telling you what? They know these prophecies. Read it again from the top, because this is telling you the same thing we just read in Hosea. They know that the outcasts of Israel has got to be gathered up. Go ahead.
Page 11. We have, however, great and precious promises to all the seed of Jacob yet to be fulfilled. He gathereth together the outcasts of Israel. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Here the 10 tribes of outcasts are distinguished from the dispersed of Judah. That promise has never been fulfilled.
You see that? They know the promises hadn't been fulfilled. That's what the scholars is writing. Go ahead.
But where are they? That they will be found does not admit of any reasonable doubt. In this age, when men run to and fro, and knowledge of all kinds is increased.
That's talking about the book of Daniel. He's telling you that's when it's going to be. We in that age right now. Go ahead.
These long outcasts of Israel will no doubt be found. There has been various conjectures as to where they are.
No, we know where they are. They sitting right here at this table, putting this lesson out. Go ahead to the next page.
Page 35. I will accept your sweet savor when I bring you out from the people and gather you out of the countries where you have been scattered, and I will be sanctified in you before the heathen. Ye shall
Hold on
know
now. These heathen writing this. You hear that? You hear that, officer? Yes, these heathen writing this. Go ahead.
And ye shall know that I am the Lord, when I shall bring you into the land of Israel, into the country, for the which I lifted up my hand to give it to your fathers. Bishop Warburton's observations on this passage are worthy of notice. He says, it is here we see denounced that the extraordinary providence under which the Israelites had always been preserved should be withdrawn, or in the scripture phrase, that God would be inquired of by them, that they should remain in the condition of their fathers in the wilderness, when the extraordinary providence of God for their signal disobedience was for some time suspended, and yet that they strove to disperse themselves among the people round about, and projected in their minds to be as the heathen.
Be as who?
To be as the heathen.
That's telling you they know the scriptures. They know that they're going to turn into heathens. They're going to be acting just like the heathens. They're going to be called heathens. This is what the scholars is writing. This is stuff that we try to tell people all the time out of the scriptures, but they don't believe the scriptures. They got to hear from their oppressor. Go ahead.
To be as the heathen and the families of the countries, to serve wood and stone, they should still be under the government of a theocracy.
To serve wood and stone, that's going into your Christianity and your Islam. This is what the scholars is writing in the 1800s.
Which, when administered with an extraordinary providence, the blessing naturally attended upon it was, and justly, called the roll and bond of the covenant.
Who the covenants with? The Israelites. Only the Israelites. The scholars know these scriptures, man. Y'all better wake up. Go ahead and go to Deuteronomy.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 33, verse 1. And this is the blessing wherewith Moses, the man of God, blessed the children of Israel before his death. Verse 20. And of Gad he said, blessed be he that enlargeth Gad. He dwelleth as a lion, and teareth the arm with the crown of the head.
So teareth the arm, because they used to make those blood covenants. So this is talking about Gad.
The book of Psalms, chapter 49, verse 11. Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names.
They call their lands after their own names, because originally we read what? America was Osiris.
Right.
But now it's called what? America. America. So that's the scriptures is clear. They identify everything. And now what we're going to do is we want to run something very special here, because we got Officer Rubin here from D.C. He's been working very hard on this movie, and we need y'all to support it, whether you get the DVD or when he comes to the city. Because what's your next city, officer?
The next city is Atlanta, Georgia, July 6th.
Okay, we're going to be having it in D.C. on June. So if you're in the D.C. area, please support this movie, June the 15th, and the details are on the site. But let's go ahead and run the trailer to the movie.
The kingdom is at hand. A lot of you heard this, yet still don't understand. You're so familiar with lies told to you by your fellow man, you wouldn't recognize the truth in front of you. So here I stand.
Nowhere in the scriptures does it talk about Christianity. All right, that's a man-made religion.
The name Africa comes from Leo Scipios Africanus, who was a Roman general, who conquered that landmass after he fought Hannibal, and he renamed it after himself.
They still come by with the water and throw it on us, and it'll wash down. And if it came, if we ate it, it had to come out. That meant, after a while, we were sitting in an inch and a half of human waste, ours and those around us. We are sitting in it. There was nothing we could do.
The country Benin, there is Fort Judah. That's where they got many of the Jews, the black Jews from Africa.
So we are cursed in the city and cursed in the field. And after a while, we began to throw up. We threw up on each other. And the smell on the ship was on.
When you examine history about Nimrod, Genesis 10, Nimrod was the first king to be deified as a god. Or he became Saturn, he became Jupiter, he became Baal, we read about.
A lot of people thinking that Adam and Eve was the only two people on earth. Adam and Eve was not the only two people on earth.
And in that book, it speaks how King James, the way he ruled his government, was based off the Old Testament. And it's funny, if he wrote the Bible, how would he be writing something that he's reading? All he did was authorize the Bible.
If a slave got brave, guess what? The slave master just played dirty. He would rape that slave's wife, like it says in chapter 28, verse 30.
They take that pig and they put that, where they see a rattlesnake in their farm. And what they do is put that pig in there. It doesn't matter if the rattlesnake bites it, because it's so venomous and so poisonous, it would not affect it. And the pig will kill it.
So who says he loves all like the way he loves his people? We make the same as many, yet we have no equal. But we've been enslaved so many times, it could have made us a sequel. We are the only people brought to bondage with ships. Now, we're going to show you a day in the life of an Israelite.
All right, all praises to the Most High. So what we want to do is start out with Deuteronomy 1 in verse 1. Go ahead.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 1, verse 1.
Because a lot of people think that the Israelites are only so-called black people. We're going to see if it's talking about Israelites as well. I mean, it's talking about Northern Kingdom as well. Go ahead.
These be the words which Moses spake unto all Israel.
Speaking to who?
Unto all Israel.
So you're telling me Northern Kingdom was also enslaved in Egypt. Go ahead.
On this side Jordan in the wilderness, in the plain over against the Red Sea, between Paran and Tophel and Laban and Hazeroth and Dizahab.
Now go to Deuteronomy 28 and verse 48. Let's see if these Northern Kingdom people, or Israelites as we like to call them, fit the curses.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 48.
And before we do that, I want to tell y'all something. The reason why we have all these books out here is because we got a lot of unbelievers that don't just believe the Bible. So we have to bring out these books in order to show you that the Bible's a true book. Go ahead.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 48. Therefore, shalt thou serve thine enemies.
Shall that do what?
Shalt thou serve thine enemies.
So you shall serve your enemies. Go ahead.
Which the Lord shall send against thee.
So the Lord sent our enemies against us. Go ahead.
In hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things.
So let's get an illustration of that. Can you read that book, The Great Chiefs?
This is a book entitled The Great Chiefs.
Now let's see what happened in Pennsylvania, Carlisle, Pennsylvania. They're still there to this day. Let's see.
This is page 92. Richard Henry Pratt, founder of the institution in 1879. Carlisle's job was to kill the Indian and save the man.
Hold on. Say that one more time.
Richard Henry Pratt, founder of the institution in 1879. Carlisle's job was to, quote, kill the Indian and save the man.
Why did he say kill the Indian? You're going to find out later on that Yahweh, who that the Indians praised, was an Israelite God that we call today. You're going to find that out real quick. Go ahead. Go down to the next part.
The youngsters were taught not only reading.
Say that again.
The youngsters were taught not only reading.
So the youngsters were taught how to read what? Their language. Go ahead.
Writing and arithmetic. But such skills as carpentry and farming for the boys and cooking and sewing for the girls.
So you know what that's showing us? Even today, that's what they teach us, the so-called 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic. That's the same stuff they teach today. The system has not changed. They did this. When did they do this? 1879. Read that again.
The youngsters were taught not only reading, writing, and arithmetic, but such skills as carpentry and farming for the boys and cooking and sewing for the girls.
Go ahead.
Once a student became reasonably conversant in English.
Say that one more time.
Once a student became reasonably conversant in English.
So he was converted to learn how to speak English and read English. Read.
He was permitted to speak no other tongue.
So now he wasn't able to speak his natural tongue, which is the Hebrew. Read.
The children ate only white man's food.
Why? Read.
And in their spare time, they played white man's games, including football and baseball.
Now, we know of one guy named Jim Thorpe. You want to find out today. One guy's Jim Thorpe. Go ahead.
Yet, while the Carlisle experience benefited some Indians, most notably an athletic Sioux and Fox named Jim Thorpe.
The one that y'all think is a so-called white man, because they hold that real quick. You know what I want, right? Hosea 7 and 8. We got to understand that we did mix, or the so-called white man mixed with the Native Americans. That did happen. So you will see Jim Thorpe today thinking that he's a so-called white man, but he's a Native American. You're reading it right now. Read.
The book of Hosea, chapter 7, verse 8. Ephraim hath mixed himself.
Who is that?
Ephraim.
Now, Ephraim is the so-called Puerto Ricans, but they're the lead tribes. But they include everybody else that's in there, the Cubans, the Seminole Indians, the Dominicans. It includes all of that. Read.
Ephraim, he hath mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned.
A cake what?
Not turned.
Like all of us cook, right? If you cook pancakes, most of us try to cook pancakes. You leave it on one side, it's real dark like most of us. You turn it over, it look more so like Officer Mendel. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a cake unturned. Read.
Back to the great chiefs, page 92. Yet, while the Carlisle experience benefited some Indians, most notably an athletic Sioux and Fox named Jim Thorpe, who was enrolled there in 1904, it was marred with tragedy for the Apaches.
Watch this.
Of 112 youngsters.
112 youngsters.
Who made the long trek to Carlisle beginning in 1886. 30 had died of white man's diseases.
Died of what?
Had died of white man's diseases.
Why is that? Why did they die of the so-called white man disease? He did not take care of himself. We're going to show you that in the books. The Native Americans took care of themselves. That's what the Bible teaches us, to keep ourselves clean. We had to teach them in the 17th century how to stay clean. Read. Finish that. Is that it on that?
That was it.
Okay, go ahead back to 28 and 48.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 48.
So this book was written 2,000 years ago. Read.
Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies.
Serve thy enemies. Who came? Christopher Columbus came. The conquistadors. The Spaniards, just in case you don't know. And we served our enemies. Go ahead. How?
Which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger.
Did the book not just say we ate the white man's food?
Yep. Yeah.
I know it was unsalted. We know that. Read.
And in thirst.
And in what?
And in thirst.
And in thirst.
And in nakedness. And in want of all things.
And want of all things meaning what? Their educational system.
Yeah.
That's what just happened. We just read it. The 3 R, what is it called? The 3 R's?
3 R's.
Reading, writing, arithmetic.
Yep.
We just read that. Was that it?
And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck.
He shall put a what?
A yoke of iron upon thy neck.
I'm going to show you in another book that the Native Americans had yoke of irons around their necks.
Sure did.
Okay? They should put a yoke of iron around their neck. Go ahead.
Until he have destroyed
Until
thee.
what?
Until he have destroyed
So
thee.
you might ask yourself today, if that's what it is, why don't we have yoke of irons around our necks now? Because all of us are destroyed right now. This is why we got to bring these other books out to show you things. Give me that in, what's that, page 171. Give me that real quick. I'm going to show you how the original so-called Indians look. Can you put it on the camera?
There you go.
I want somebody to show me a so-called white man out of that. Those is dark men. Those is dark men. Where you see a so-called white man at in there? Once again, we mixed ourselves. That was before we mixed ourselves. All right, that's good. Give me that page 226, because I have to do this. Because we got New Year's that come up. Everybody love to celebrate New Year's. I want to show you what the so-called white man did on New Year's to our people. Did unto us. I want to show you something right now.
This is a book. We're still in the Great Chiefs, page 226.
Watch this, y'all.
During
Right there, yep.
during the confrontation, a medicine man began to perform the ghost dance, as though to suggest that the religion's prophecy of the collapse of white civilization might begin to come true here.
Why? Because we still was on idolatry as well as Native Americans. Don't think that the so-called black man the only one that was in idolatry. Read.
Suddenly, an Indian fired his gun, hitting no one but drawing a cataclysmic response from the soldiers' weapons. By the time a ceasefire was called, about half of Bigfoot's 350 followers, together with the chief himself, lay dead.
Y'all see that? Now go to the other highlighted part. This is the point I want y'all to see for you to likely celebrate New Year's Eve. Watch this.
But perhaps the real finale of the Indians'
Perhaps the what?
But perhaps the real finale.
So you mean to tell me 350 people getting killed wasn't a real finale? But this is the real finale. Let me show you how this man thinks. How in depth he is, how evil, how wicked he is according to the Bible. Read.
But perhaps the real finale of the Indians' tragedy was enacted on New Year's Day.
It was acted when?
On New Year's Day.
New Year's Day, go ahead.
1891.
Not too long ago, go ahead.
When white soldiers and civilians.
When who?
When white soldiers and civilians.
So we know that wasn't talking about so-called black people. It's talking about so-called white men. When white soldiers and civilians, go ahead.
Rode back to Bigfoot's devastated camp and pried the victims out from under a shroud of ice.
So you mean to tell me these men was dead? On New Year's Eve, they went to their graves, pried them up under ice, dug up in the grave up under ice on New Year's Day, the one that we like to celebrate as a people. Read.
And pried the victims out from under a shroud of ice and snow for an unceremonious burial.
Why? Because we ceremonially buried ourselves according to the Bible. Yeah. So they seen that happen. So what did they do? Even the dead, they had to do something. They had to interrupt the dead. Why? We're going to show you why in a second. We're going to show you exactly why they had to interrupt the dead. Give me that in Ecclesiastes 1. They had to interrupt the dead for a reason. See, they knew who Northern Kingdom was. But that's for you that like to celebrate New Year's. This is what happened on New Year's. You're dealing with that same spirit today when you out there. Go ahead. Is Ecclesiastes 1? 9. Start with, was it 9 or 1? Yeah.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verse 9.
This is why they interrupted the dead.
The thing that hath been, it is that which shall be.
Say that again.
The thing that hath been, it is that which shall be.
So what they figured is they smarter than God. What they figured is we bury them unceremonially, they're not going to get the kingdom. That's what they think. The scripture is very clear that they think they higher than the Most High God. Or wiser. Read.
And that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun.
There's no new thing under the sun. Now go ahead and give me that. What's that? Deuteronomy 28 and start with 49.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 49. The Lord shall bring a nation.
Shall do what?
The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far.
Now we read about this earlier, about Columbus, right? We read about what Columbus did. He came from far, a conquistador, a Spaniard, speaking Spanish, which we never spoke. And we're going to see that later on. Go ahead.
The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth.
From where?
From the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth.
Now, I want you to get this book real quick, Stolen Continent, by Ronald Wright. I want to show y'all something. And I want you to open up the page 2. This is why we when we read these books, there's a lot of information in these books. Like I said, this is page 2 of the book.
Man, people don't believe the Bible, so we have to bring these books out. And I never seen people hate the Bible more than a Christian.
And that's the craziest thing.
They hate the Bible. When you bring it out, they just scatter like roaches with the lights on.
Just start right here.
Okay. This is a book entitled Stolen Continents by Ronald Wright. Page 2. The inhabitants of America saw it differently. Their ancestors had made the same discovery long before. To them, the New World was so old that it was the only world.
Wow, that's the same thing we deal with today, with so-called blacks today. You have people that say, I ain't from Africa, and we ain't from Africa. Right. But we came from Africa in the slave ships. I'm from Georgia. You ain't from Georgia. It's the same thing. That's all that they knew was America. So everybody's being retaught right now. Go to the next page.
Page 4.
Go ahead.
By 1492, there were approximately 100 million Native Americans, a fifth, more or less, of the human race.
Y'all understand that? You know how many people they killed? So them numbers that was being taught was wrong. Those is wrong. Give me page 6. And give me give me page 6 real quick.
Page 6.
Start with where we at? Yeah, start right there and then we go right here. Watch this.
Page 6. It never occurred to Eurocentric historians that plows and wheels are not much use without draft animals such as oxen or horses, neither of which existed in the Americas before Columbus.
Y'all see that? We didn't have that before Columbus. Go down to here.
Another of Europe's hoariest ideas about America Another of Europe's hoariest ideas about America is the self-hypothesis known as the white God myth.
The what?
The white God myth.
Just like you Catholics today, you so-called Native Americans today that worship the white God, Caesar Borgia.
Yeah.
That's not what we was doing. You got someone else?
Nah.
It's a myth.
It's a myth. So it's not.
Everybody
not real.
know that's a myth. Everybody know that's not real. Again, why did he put himself up there? So you can see God into him. Just like when we out here teaching on the street and we say the so-called white man the devil. You know what they say? You wrong, you racist. How am I racist? I'm telling what the Bible say.
That's what the Bible say. And then when you look at their characteristics, they fit the criteria. Nobody can argue that.
So to get something else, give me that in 1 Corinthians 11. Let's see what the Bible say about that. So it's a white God myth, meaning what? Caesar Borgia, somebody else was raised up, and it's false. Read that. 1 Corinthians 11:4. And then we're going to get Matthew 24 and 14. Back it up.
You want 11? You want 2 Corinthians.
2 Corinthians, excuse me.
The book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 11, verse 4.
Go ahead.
For if he that cometh preacheth another Jesus,
Do what?
preacheth another Jesus, whom we have not preached, or if you receive another spirit, which ye have not received, or another gospel, which ye have not accepted, ye might well bear with him.
You see that? And that's what we doing. We bearing with the Catholics today as Native Americans. Give me the next one.
That was heavy, though, because it said a spirit which ye had not received. And the spirit that comes with Christianity today is an effeminate spirit.
You're right.
A very soft, weak, effeminate spirit.
Yeah, 24? No, Matthew 24. Yep. 24 and 24.
The book of Matthew, chapter 24, and verse 24. For there shall arise false Christ.
There shall arise what?
For there shall arise false Christ.
So this is already prophesied that this was going to happen. It happened to the Native Americans over here in America before we came here. Go ahead.
And false prophets.
And what?
And false prophets.
Christopher Columbus.
And shall shew great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect.
And what happened? They deceived the Native Americans with their great signs, with their guns,
right?
Sure
with
did.
their money, the land, the treaties. Go ahead, Austin.
Hey, jump up to 5 real quick, because I like 5 too, because Christ had to say this thing twice.
The book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 5. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ.
So we know they came with Caesar Borgia saying he is Christ. Go ahead.
And shall deceive many.
And shall deceive many. Many people are in the Christian faith right now. Many is talking about a lot of people. A lot of people keep Christmas, Easter. They all go to church on Sunday. None of that's in the Bible. So Christ has already given you fair warning that was going to come.
Let me get this. Let's get page 9 because, again, we all understand that the so-called white man, the devil. I'm going to tell you the so-called Japan, Japanese man, Moab, Ammon, all them, the devil as well. And they enslaved us as well. Read.
Back to Stolen Continents by Ronald Wright. Page 9. Japan.
Who?
Japan, for example, is modern. It's taken much from the West, especially technology.
Now, what else did it take from the West that they didn't say there? Is enslaving the people. Enslaving the Native Americans. Keep going.
Yet it remains its own language, arts, attitude, social structure, religion, and royal family. It isn't the Japan of the shoguns, but it is no less Japanese.
Now go down to, like right there where it say Mayans.
Okay. But within a remarkably short time, Mayas and Aztecs.
The who?
Mayas and Aztecs adapted the Spanish alphabet for writing their own languages.
So y'all understand the Mayans and Aztecs is talking about Issachar and Zebulun. What did they do?
Mayas and Aztecs adapted the Spanish alphabet for writing their own languages.
So you mean to tell me they didn't speak Spanish originally?
Nope.
That's what's being said right here? We just read that in Deuteronomy 28:48. Read that again.
Mayas and Aztecs adapted the Spanish alphabet for writing their own languages.
Now go to page 12. Let me get that on the bottom. Bottom of page 12.
49 said the same thing because it said a tongue they didn't understand.
Right. Exactly.
Page 12.
At the bottom, yep.
Pedro de Cieza de Leon, a young Spaniard.
Now you will read that and think you talking about a Hispanic. But it said a young Spaniard. Go ahead.
A young Spaniard who embarked for the New World after seeing magnificent specimens of Inca gold and silver exhibited at Seville in 1534.
Watch this.
Became one of the most trustworthy European observers of the wreckage in the wake of his countrymen.
Here it come.
It is no small sorrow to reflect, he wrote.
He wrote.
Quote, that we Christians...
That what?
That we Christians...
So they called themselves Christians. So why wasn't the Native Americans calling themselves Christians or Catholics? The same reason we don't call ourselves that today. That's not who we are. We Israelites according to the Bible. Read.
Quote, it is no small sorrow to reflect, he wrote, quote, that we Christians have destroyed so many kingdoms. Have destroyed so many kingdoms.
Now you read that in Revelation. That war is coming.
They still doing. They still destroying kingdoms now over in Iraq, Libya, Assyria. All that stuff is under the Christian nation, America, bringing democracy, which is destruction.
That's it. Keep going.
For wherever Christians have passed.
For what?
For wherever Christians have passed, conquering and discovering, it seems as though a fire has gone, consuming everything.
Y'all understand what's going on? This is in the book. And this is a perfect time to show you that the Native Americans wrote in Hebrew. That was our original tongue. We're going to the video.
So, yeah, let's go get the video.
Is made up of 606 feet, 606 feet, 606 feet, 606 feet. 606. It's made up of staves, exactly the same. Now, if that's not interesting enough, look at the angle of the Great Pyramid of Giza. If you take the angle of the Great Pyramid of Giza, the slope is 51.8 degrees. Let's go back to the earthworks. If you measure the line that goes straight through the center of the structure, right here, and then you go true north, it's 51.8 degrees. That angle is exactly the same angle as the pyramids of Giza. It is the same math, the same calculations as ancient Egyptians. Let me show you one more connection. In 1860, David Wyrick, he's a guy who surveyed the Newark earthworks. He was digging into a mound near those earthworks, and he found a wooden coffin made of oak. They opened up the coffin and found a skeleton of a man holding a little box that was about 8.10 inches in size. The box had been cemented shut here. This, by the way, is sitting in Ohio. Well, he opened up the box and he found a little man inside, a little black stone. They took it to scholars and they looked at it. The man seems to be carrying something, and there's writing here at first they couldn't recognize. The writing is, they thought in 1860, some sort of Hebrew. Well, finally, about 20 years later, they found some rabbis living in the area, and the rabbis looked at that, and they could read it. They said it was an old kind of block Hebrew, and it was a rendition of the Ten Commandments. Now, this is another piece. Block Hebrew, they said they'd never seen anything like it. Mainstream archaeologists at the time called this a hoax. But then in 1900, or just about after 1900, in Israel, they found the same block-style Hebrew writing. Mainstream archaeologists still dismiss the findings. They found it in Israel, and they found it in Ohio. But there was another stone that they found that they couldn't argue. This is the Bat Creek stone. It was found during the course of an official Smithsonian evacuation. The Smithsonian didn't understand the meaning of the writing on the stone. They thought it was Cherokee, since it came from Cherokee country. They didn't realize that it's actually Hebrew. They had published this originally upside down. They threw it in a box at the bottom of the Smithsonian, put it in the basement. Many years later, a scholar took it out of the box, looked at it, and went, oh my gosh, it's upside down. It's Phoenician, ancient Hebrew. So what's going on here? What is that about? Where is that history? I'll show you in a few minutes, and we're going to have a conversation, and I'm going to show you some more things that the Smithsonian, science, government, commerce colluded to erase. By the way, I want to thank the directors of the documentary Lost Civilizations of North America for bringing these stories to my attention. I was blown away. To find more, visit the website, lostcivilizationdvd.com. Here's the thing we should be asking ourselves. I don't know the story of these. Do you know that? Did you know that? Do you live in Ohio and did you know that? Why not? Were the American Indians wronged? Yes. Yes. And that's what we focus on in America. Is we were bad to the American Indians. Forget about it. It's in the past. The question should be the ones that the founders asked. Who are they? What knowledge do they have? Can you imagine the difference we would have now if we would put our differences...
Y'all see that? That's heavy right there. So they deliberately hiding this information. So they know who the Native Americans are. They know who we are. And people got to remember, we lost our history. Everybody else has their history and they have our history. We don't know who we are.
And he asked the question, who are they? Playing games. Yeah. They knew exactly who we are. They know they Israelites, and we're going to show it. Get that book? We're going to show that they knew who they were, and we know.
This is a book entitled The Lost Tribes and Promised Lands, The Origins of American Racism by Ronald Sanders.
Okay, before you get that, can you just get Exodus 1 real quick? Right after we came out of the Exodus in Egypt. So we can understand. This in the Bible. Let's get this real quick. Let's go 1 to 5.
The book of Exodus, chapter 1, verse 1. Now these are the names of the children of Israel, which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob.
Okay, so let's talk about the children of Israel, their names today. Go ahead.
Verse 2. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. Dan and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls. For Joseph was in Egypt already.
Okay, now go ahead. Watch this.
The Lost Tribes and Promised Lands, The Origins of American Racism by Ronald Sanders.
Now, they re-released this book, right?
Yeah.
And it's like $24 now, but at one time it was like $3,000.
Yeah, it was.
Something must be missing out the book. But what they didn't take out, because Esau always slip up, and God always smarter, is what we about to read right here. Go ahead.
Page 364. The woman got off and spoke to Francisco in an Indian tongue that Montesinos could not understand, although he could perceive that he was being identified in the conversation. She then turned to her male companions to explain the situation. Upon hearing her words, they rose, went over to Montesinos, and to his utter astonishment said, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Elohinu, Adonai Ehad.
That sound like Hebrew to me.
Yeah,
that don't sound like Spanish.
That definitely sound like Hebrew.
Can you read that again, please?
Upon hearing her words, they rose, went over to Montesinos, and to his utter astonishment said, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Elohinu, Adonai Ehad, meaning, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. They had recited in Hebrew the fundamental credo of Judaism.
In Hebrew.
So that was in Lost Tribes and Promised Land, showing you that the Native Americans here knew they were Israel. So now we're going to go back to the Greek captivity under Alexandria. We're going to see what they said there. Go ahead and give them the title of this book.
This book is entitled The Life of Greece by Will Durant. Page 580. Face to face with the naive polytheism of Hellenic cults, the rabbis chanted the sonorous refrain still heard in every Jewish synagogue. Shema Israel, Adonai Elenu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one.
The same people.
Same exact
Two
thing.
different locations in Greece and over here in America saying the same thing, claiming the God of Israel.
Years
in
later.
Hebrew.
Let's see something. Get Genesis 49 and start with verse 19. Because, wow, you're saying the same thing over and over.
The book of Genesis, chapter 49, verse 19. Gad.
Now, Gad, who we call today, is the Native Americans, right? Watch this.
Gad, a troop shall overcome him.
A who?
A troop shall overcome him.
That's in the Bible. A troop shall overcome the Native Americans. Go ahead.
But he shall overcome at the last.
Why? Because at the end days, guess what? We're going to get this kingdom back. We ain't going to ask for it. We're going to take it according to Daniel. Now get that in Isaiah 65 and verse 11. For people that like to celebrate Thanksgiving.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 65, verse 11. But ye are they that forsook the Lord, that forgot my holy mountain, that prepare a table for that.
Prepare what?
That prepare a table for that troop.
So what do they do on Thanksgiving?
Prepare a table.
They prepare a table with the turkey on there. Go ahead.
And that furnish the drink offering unto that number.
Y'all seeing this?
And you know that turkey represents the body of the Native American. The cranberry sauce represents the blood. The stuffing represents when they used to cut the women's breast off and stuff them and play soccer or play ball with them. They would make balls out of them. There's a lot of symbolism in that Thanksgiving dinner. People don't understand the wickedness that they dealing with and the symbolism. You know, same thing with Christmas and Easter and the rest of that wicked mess. All that stuff is symbolism.
Give me that in what's that? Psalms 55, verse 20. Let's look at these smooth words. And these smooth words come from somebody that they call the Pope. We're gonna show you something about the Pope, though.
The book of Psalms, chapter 55, verse 20. He hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter.
The what? Ooh.
The words of his mouth were smoother than butter.
So mostly today, our Northern Kingdom brothers are what? In Catholicism, right? Watch this. Read this right here and start right there with the Pope. I want to show y'all something about the Pope because that's who run the Catholic religion, right? Watch this.
This is a book entitled The Chronology of Native Americans, the ultimate history of North America's indigenous peoples.
That's the guy. What's he? Oh, you know what I'm talking about, right? That's him. Go ahead.
By Greg O'Brien. Page 26. In May 1493.
In what?
In May 1493.
Okay.
The Pope issued a papal bull called the Inter Caetera, which granted legal authority for Spain's actions in the Americas.
Meaning what? They gave legal authority for them to enslave Native Americans. But you following that same doctrine. The Pope legalized that. Come on, man. Wake up with it. Give me page 26 in the same book. Page 27. Let's see some of these characteristics that the Native Americans went through that the so-called black man go to today. 27? Where it say not human?
Okay. Page 27. The conversion of Indians to Christianity was ostensibly a goal, but there were...
Hold up. Slow that down.
That's heavy.
Y'all understand what was just said? Read that again.
The conversion of Indians to Christianity was ostensibly a goal.
So if Indians or Native Americans or Israel was never Christianity, what were they before that? They were Israelites. We just read that they spoke the Hebrew. Read.
But there were doubts about the possibility of doing so.
Why?
After all, it was by no means clear whether the Indians could even be considered human.
Now, haven't we heard that before about us? That the so-called Negro wasn't considered human. He was considered an animal. They fit the same curses. Give me that in Deuteronomy 28.
You know, a lot of people get upset when we put down Christianity because y'all putting down. We're not putting down the Bible because Christianity and the Bible is two different things. Christianity does not follow the Bible at all.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 32.
Go ahead.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people.
That's the same thing that happened when Christopher Columbus came over here. Watch this, though. Go ahead.
And thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. And there shall be no might in thine hand.
So what is that saying? Same thing. The reason why this book right here was taken out by the Catholics, by the Pope that enslaved us. That's giving them Gentile names. The Gentiles are the Northern Kingdom. From Ephraim on down. That's what that's showing you. I want to bring one more book because I want to give you an account. We got a couple minutes left. I want to give you an account of a slave owner and some slaves in Brazil. Give me that in the Children of God's Fire. I want to show y'all something. Start with page 1.
We had to bring them books out, man.
We got to. We got to show the truth. Start with page 1. Right there. Let's just read that real quick. Because we just read the scripture. Now let's back it up with books. Go ahead.
This is a book entitled Children of God's Fire, a documentary history of black slavery in Brazil by Robert Edgar Conrad.
Okay. Watch this.
Page 1.
So that's page 1. That's why I say we got to get these books. We got to study. They're not going to show you this stuff in the libraries. Page 1 come in heavy. Go ahead.
During 2/3 of Brazil's recorded history, it was an established and nearly unquestioned practice to uproot black people from their native societies and transport them across the Atlantic to Brazil.
So you mean to tell me the Native Americans, the Northern Kingdom was in slave ships as well? Where you get this doctrine that they not Israelites? Read that again.
During 2/3 of Brazil's recorded history,
and Brazil's the tribe of Asher for everybody to understand. Go ahead.
During 2/3 of Brazil's recorded history, it was an established and nearly unquestioned practice to uproot black people from their native societies and transport them across the Atlantic to Brazil.
Why? Go ahead.
There to be sold.
The what?
There to be sold.
Did we not just read that in Deuteronomy 28 and 32? We just read that. Go ahead.
There to be sold to planters, miners, and town dwellers to do the harsh work of a frontier society.
Now go to page 2.
So we got all these camps talking about Northern Kingdom or the so-called Hispanics and Native Americans is not Israel. But we got all these history books to prove. More importantly, we got the Bible that we're proving it with.
And they said it was established and unquestioned, so everyone was doing it.
It's a documented history. Everybody was going against the Israelites. Watch this.
Page 4.
Now, I asked a question. They call us African Americans, right? Watch this, though.
Page 4. Thus in Brazil, among every generation of slaves, there were many persons who had passed through the harsh experiences of the African slave trade.
So why they don't call them African Americans? Once again, we just read in Deuteronomy 28:32, Gentile names. Why they not called African Americans? Read. Was that it on that?
That was it.
Go to page, give me on page 16. And Michael, get on Deuteronomy 28:48 real quick.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 48.
We said we was going to tell y'all about that iron on the neck. Go ahead.
Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things.
Go ahead.
And he shall put a yoke of iron.
That's what I want right there. He shall put a what?
A yoke of iron upon thy neck.
Let's see if that fit Northern Kingdom. Go ahead.
Page 16. One substitute alone is not acceptable, but according to the gravity of the offense and the amount of debt, 6, 7, 8, and more are named. Once these have been appointed by the condemned man, they are put in irons.
What? So now Northern Kingdom put in irons. I thought that didn't happen. It's documented. I want to give you this one last thing. Give me page 32. It's about this slave owner telling the story about what we had to go through, about this 12-year-old kid, the type of things that was happening to us. Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, start right there. Start right there. Yeah. Watch this.
Page 32. Although the Africans would not suffer from...
Now, they called us Africans. Why? Because we came from Africa.
Right.
At that time.
They knew who we were.
They knew exactly who we were. Go ahead.
Although the Africans would not suffer from that high degree of temperature, would it not promote a great deal for drink?
Now, what that's talking about is when we was in the slave ships. It was over 120 to 130 degrees in the slave ship. Watch this, though.
Of course, it would under those circumstances.
Now, once again, this is a slave owner telling his story about what happened or what he did personally. Go ahead.
What quantity of water do you consider that an African would require for his sustenance per day?
Per day. What type of water or H2O would this person need? Go ahead.
A boy of 10 or 12 years of age.
We're talking about a 10 or 12-year-old boy. Go ahead.
Would drink more than 1 gallon.
He'd drink over a gallon of water in 120 or 130 degree weather. Watch this.
What quantity do they usually get?
What do they get, though? What do you give them, Esau? Go ahead.
It is horrid almost to say. The quantity is very small. I have known from hearsay within the last 2 years that a teacup full given once in 3 days will support life for 20 to 30 days.
Y'all understand that? They got a teacup. Them coffee mugs you drink out of. Those tea. That's what they got for 3 days. That's the type of stuff that we was going through, man. That's the type of stuff. Let me get one more. Get page 14 real quick. Get page 14. Let's start right here. I'm gonna show y'all something.
Page 14. And this is felt especially by those of greater understanding, such as the Japanese. So much is this, so that this comprised the principal chapter of the decree, which with 25 years ago, the tyrant Kambu Kondono, universal lord of all Japan,
watch this,
ordered the exile of all those who accepted that conversion.
You see that? Go ahead.
Claiming that they went about buying and making slaves in those ports.
What slaves are they talking about? The Brazilians, the tribe of Asher. Because they didn't accept their religion. Same thing that Muhammad did. Christianity did. It's the same thing. All these nations was up against us and are still today against us. Go ahead.
On the pretext of religion, because little by little they were plotting to subjugate all those states and to make them tributary to Portugal.
That was it? That was it on that?
Yes.
The same?
The same scandal exists in China.
I just want y'all to understand that. Just because it's in Japan, don't think it didn't happen in China when we built the Great Walls. The same exact stuff.
Israelites built this whole world. So
Y'all
you understand that?
Go ahead, just finish that up.
The same scandal exists in China, as can be proved by unquestionable facts, and it reached the point that the Bishop of Macau issued a directive by which he ordered that no one in those places, under penalty of excommunication, might enslave any Chinese. And this because our people did not possess any of the justifications that our laws grant to enslave people of that nation. Because concerning the pretext of just war, they do not make war, except with the Tartars, and the latter do not engage in commerce with the Portuguese, nor do the Chinese sell the Tartars to our people.
Why? Because they were selling Israelites. Now, like I like to always do, what are we out here doing? What are we trying to do? We got a lot of information up here, and obviously y'all see it's too much for us to go through each and everything. Hopefully y'all got some understanding of what's going on out here. Can we get one verse to finish out?
Hey, can we get Amos 3:1?
Okay,
to finish that out? Because what he just said, they bypassed everybody else and only chose Israel.
Exactly.
So get that.
I mean, they have to keep the scriptures. God said that's got to happen.
The book of Amos, chapter 3, verse 1. Hear this word that the Lord hath spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities.
And that's why the Israelites went into slavery and all those things happened, because we are the only ones that had the covenant with the Most High God. So we got judged for that. So with that, we're going to close it out. Are you going to bring out one more? We run.
I gotta give it to y'all. This is crazy. I need y'all to ponder on what's about to come out. Go ahead.
Back to Children of God's Fire, page 10.
Go ahead.
And so with great effort they finished the dividing up, because aside from the trouble they had with the captives, the field was quite full of people, both from the town and from the surrounding villages and districts.
Now watch this point right here.
Who for that day were taking time off from their work.
They took off work.
Which was the source of their earnings, for the sole purpose of observing this novelty. And seeing these things, while some slept, others took part in the separating. And they made such a commotion that they greatly confused those who were in charge of dividing them up.
So they love seeing you go through hell than make money. They took off work just to see you getting hung by trees to make money. That's what we talking about here today. That we fit the curses, the Native Americans, the Puerto Ricans, the Dominicans. Who else? Help me out. Who else? What
all
other tribe?
South America.
All South Americans.
All the
Cubans.
And the remnant that's spread across. We all fit that. And y'all see that we was enslaved to Japan, China, America, everywhere, all through the world.
Mexicans, Central Americans.
Visit the site and watch the movie. With that, we're going to say shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom. Most High Christ bless.
And breathe into his nostrils the breath of life. And breathe into his nostrils the breath of life. What's that? The Spirit of the Most High God. The commandments of the Most High God. The Bible says from Friday at sundown to Saturday at sundown, there's what? No buying or selling. That's the Sabbath day. We keep that. The Bible commands us that we wear fringes. That's what you see in all the brothers. We keep that. And that's why we're here, to teach our people that. That's the answer.
Shalom, Israel. I'm Elder Nathaniel of Israel United in Christ. YouTube likes to shut our channels down, as some of you have noticed, ever so often. Subscribing to join IUIC will assure you will always stay connected to our YouTube accounts. We want to do our best to make sure this truth gets out. Please click and join our subscriber YouTube channel called Join IUIC to stay linked to all of our videos. So again, please make sure you subscribe to this and join IUIC channel to get your latest updates from all our YouTube channels. Shalom.